everyone. I'm Abhijit Mitra. I'm the CEO of Outreach, and I'm very excited to be here today with Benni Blau, Chief Process and Information Officer at SAP. And we are going to talk about AI and the changing role of the CIO. So, welcome, Benny, to this podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So,
Um,
yeah, I was thinking, Benny, you could start with your title. It's Chief Process and Information Officer. It's a very interesting title, and I'm sure we would all love to know what that actually means.
yeah, so maybe let me start from that angle. It's not because I like long titles, but the process is really dear to my heart because I truly believe if you want to transform your business, it starts with processes and not with IT. IT is means to get to an outcome, but you need to start from a business lens basically, and especially in a software company and in high tech, you might know it because everyone can do it. There's a tendency to solve every problem with another tool or product, and sometimes that's not needed. And this is why we also at SAP did a major shift. We pivoted basically from a product to a process-centric IT, which has major implications, but it really helps to basically align ourselves to our business partners better. So we can share business KPIs, we can focus on outcomes, not on classical IT KPIs. And it really helps us to approach problems a little bit different.
That's awesome. So you're really thinking about how you apply technology to solve business problems, and not the other way around, which is exactly what I believe in as well.
Yeah, but that's a good point, right? Because it's a little bit of a chicken egg problem. Typically, you say process first, IT second, but sometimes your business counterpart does not know what they don't know. So you have to basically first get them in touch with technology, especially on the AI front, to actually get them to know what's in the space of a potential solution to their problem. And that's what we also try to do. So we are not too formal about the sequence.
All right. So let's talk about AI. And you and I were chatting about this just before we started this podcast. And one of the things you told me is that, traditionally process is a very well structured step by step, the 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of thing. But you said that with AI, a lot of that is changing. So how is that changing, Benny? Like, how is
Yeah.
AI changing all of that?
And and so if people talk about processes, they typically think in like predetermined sequences of tasks that someone has to perform in order to get after those sequences to a certain outcome, right? It's predetermined. You can well document it, you can audit it, and it's all good. With agentic, I think there will be a disruption to that kind of mindset because typically what you want to do is you express an objective or some value you want to achieve, and then something happens, right? There's an orchestrator agent, there are niche expert agents, they orchestrate themselves, and right from the beginning you don't know what's going to happen. You might ask the same question with a different sequence happening to get to a different outcome, and I think that's the magic also we want to see, because as an end user you don't have to talk about the how, you simply talk about the what, and the rest happens based on artificial intelligence and the agentic layer. Yeah.
So you're really talking about the vision where you have a business outcome that you want to get to, and the AI agents are helping you autonomously figuring out what the best next action should be for you to do so you can get to that outcome. That is just amazing. Now, one of the things that I hear from a lot of my customers, I don't know if it's true for you as well, is that for the AI agents to do what they have to do to take their decisions, do that work, um, they need data. And a lot of companies are struggling with getting good data together. So how are you handling that, and what's your view on that?
Yeah. So first of all, for me, it's important that we as IT are customer zero for everything SAP also provides to our customers. And especially in the data space, we recently launched Business Data Cloud. And the idea is to solve a very common problem with all large enterprise customers, because they have a very dispersed, heterogeneous data landscape. They have SAP applications, non-SAP applications, a warehouse system, and as a prerequisite for any good high value AI cases, and especially agentic, you need a semantically well defined, harmonized data layer with
Yeah,
clear governance. And with BDC, you can basically achieve that because it's what we call, so like the heart of the concept is a data product. So what we do is when we ship an application, you get a data product out of the box, which is a semantically well defined API that exposes a certain business data object, and it's the single point in your company where that is exposed. There's zero copy, right? It can directly be used, and then you have data sphere as the layer where you compose those, I would say, raw business data objects into more complex ones, and this is then the foundation for transactions, for AI, for agents, and for analytical assets.
that's awesome. We always learned in computer science that garbage in is garbage out. So, and it's I don't think any different with any technology that we have, whether it's agentic, generative, or whatever it is. It's a some of the principles always holds true. Really excited to hear about that though. So let's say now that you have somewhat figured out your data, and then you have autonomous agents who are actually working on that data, figuring out the next best action. So this process is actually this business outcome that you're trying to get to. The thing that you talk about a lot, I've heard you talk about this, is focusing on quality over quantity. And you said business AI is about quality. Or talk a little bit about that. Tell us about that. Like what does it mean?
Yeah, I think, I mean, when it all started, I typically, and I talk to my peers, I typically hear the question, how many AI cases do you have?
Yeah,
And I think it's entirely the wrong question. It's because it basically forces a certain volume of cases and so on, but you lose track of a true value. So for us internally, we have a very stringent value assessment process where, so I don't prevent any idea from coming up and being assessed. Don't get me wrong, but then for that idea to be processed and for us to really put investments in, there's a very stringent value assessment. And I would rather have like small amount of cases that yield true value for us internally, for the employees in the different functions at SAP, than having a broad spectrum of, like, I would say, more of commodity cases, yeah, that where there is basically no return of investment.
so the ROI is really what you're looking for, and where the ROI is maximum, maximize that. Focus on a few, get it right, then focus on the many and not have any focus at all, really. Um, so when you talk about ROI, though, is it always about like productivity or time spent or time saved, or like what kind of ROI, what kind of outcomes? I know it depends on the use case, but what are the top things that you are thinking of in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, typically you have two categories. The one is, as you said, right, productivity increase that yield or that lower cost in certain area, or need less manual steps and so on, which is more of a bottom line perspective. But then there's also clearly top line cases where there's more value for customers. We have SAP for me as an example, right? So a single stop shop for customers when you see what you purchased, support tickets, everything you do via this single central, and there we put a lot of AI in, for example, search, other capabilities, because this is a true value then for all our customers, right? So there's, I guess, top line category and a bottom line category in this value assessment. Both is important.
One of the things that I look at when I use AI myself is that, how much, not just time it saves, but like how much of the grunt work that I don't have to do anymore.
Yeah, true.
Literally. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, we make software for go to market people, right? So, imagine the amount of research you have to do before, like, say, I meet you, and how much of that can be done by AI, or how much of my proactive customer reach outs can actually be done by AI before I get involved. So that's what, like, for me personally, that makes a huge difference. And just so you know, Benny, today is the last day of our quarter, and I'm here in a podcast with you.
It speaks for your product.
and and the reason I can do that, and I posted that on LinkedIn just before our podcast, is that because my AI is already projected the quarter out for me, and it's been doing that
Yeah.
consistently for the last couple of quarters. And it gets all this information from all the interaction that's happening with our customers. So anyway, that kind of saves us a lot of time, saves me a lot of
But
time.
to your point, right, I think that also answers the question of what's the human in the formula. And I mean, this is clear. For example, we do for our engineering folks a lot of AI capabilities, automation, and we take off all the nasty tasks that nobody wants to do, like documentation, bug fixing, security scans, open source scanning, CI/CD pipeline creation,
Yeah.
commit documentation, everything we try to take off their plate so they can fully, like, they can transform how they work into more value added tasks. And I think it's the same for the sales space, marketing. And I think that transformation we see in the industry. So there is, I would rather talk about more outcome and transformation of higher value tasks than anything else when there's a discussion between, what's the role of people versus AI.
Yeah,
Um,
and we hear a lot of that. Like, there's a lot of concern, genuine concern around, oh, what will we do if AI does everything for us? Now, my point has always been that it's technology in the service of people, and not the other way around. And then the more technology we have, the more productive we become. And that's sort of been true for ever, as far as I can remember. Like, any new technology opens up new opportunities. Do you believe the same as way, Benny, or do
I
you see it
like I
doomsday
like
or
no,
yes?
I like to think in top line and opportunities rather than input and bottom line. So from my point of view, it just extrapolates the potential of output, uh, rather than a discussion of do we need less or more people for something. It's just like you can do way more with the same,
Yeah,
and you can move people into more exciting roles and tasks in the company. And I think that's the big upside.
yeah.
And by the way, I mean, as everyone is applying those technologies, there's also a pressure for everyone to get more productive in terms of outcome, right? I think that's the big theme you will see, and I think it's a. I would rather look at it from the opportunity side than any doom scenario that some people put out there.
Absolutely. Um, so one of the things that we also see internally within outreach and also with our customers is that when you have, like, what's happening out there in the market is there are a lot of people saying that I have AI, use my tool. And so it gets a little confusing, for you as a buyer, as to, okay, which one do I use for what purpose and stuff. And so I have seen some of our customers struggle with that because they either end up buying too much or nothing because they're not sure, like, which one actually does anything at all. So in that situation, like, when you have all the different technologies, how do you decide, or what's your criteria, Benny, to decide, like, how should you put it together so you have sort of one consolidated tech stack which makes sense for you, for your
Yeah,
organization?
it's a multifaceted question. So I think, for example, we, as a CIO, you're typically confronted with the problem of multiple tools for different purposes. People can, like in the SaaS world, like your employees can also purchase things. They can try out things. You have like the land and expand motions. Everyone else does with us as well, right?
Yes.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
So what we do on the enterprise architecture side is we use LeanIX to basically model all the business capabilities we have to support with tooling. And then we have an inventory of everything that runs in the company. And then you immediately see where there's redundancies, right? And we actively trigger the discussion of consolidation of stack at some point in time, which doesn't mean we do not allow for trying out things, assessing the market. I mean, that's bread and butter for us as well. But at some point in this life cycle, you need to come to a point where things converge, and we cannot afford too much things for the same supporting the same business capability, especially on the platform side. We rely heavily on BTP and Gen AI Hub for the cases we develop, and not because it's our own product, but because we want to make sure there's data protection is assured, GDPR is
Yeah.
assured, everything runs in a compliant and governed and reliable fashion. And this is why I think the lower you are in the stack, especially on platform level, you cannot afford a slew of things. If you go up the stack in the higher application space, I think it's okay to experiment and try out, but at some point it has to converge also from cost point of view.
Yeah, you mentioned governance. You mentioned data consistency, process consistency. So we hear a lot of that from our top enterprise customers as well. And many of our CIOs are actually really struggling with a lot of these issues. So, as a closing question, I would have for you is like, what advice would you have for other CIOs who are trying to leverage AI to, get to those outcomes that you're looking for, that they're looking for, but at the same time struggling with some of these problems about like tech stack explosion, a lot of the challenges we talked about today, quality over quantity and so on and so forth, importance of good data. So what advice would you have for these CIOs to be more effective?
I mean, first and foremost, I mean, it's clear AI disrupts a lot of different classical roles in a company and so on. But like, especially for the CIO role, it completely elevates the role to a completely different strategic level from my point of view. So, of what maybe was a cost center back then in the days is now like, if I look at SAP, right? So we have productivity promises to our customers of 30%. Now, what does it mean in return is we have to live up to that promise also internally. And my team, our team, is responsible for offering the tooling, the capability enablement for everyone internally and the different functions in order to get to that level of productivity. And that puts you I think, in a highly demanding, but also in a very luxury position in the company. And I would just recommend to everyone else, live up to that expectation, and have also a different self-image of the unit in the company internally, and be part of the right strategic discussions rather than being a service provider.
Amazing. That just sums it up so well. And the title, imagine the title of our podcast is AI and the changing role of the CIO. And that's exactly how you summed it all up for all of us. So thank you so much, Benny,
Thank
for
you.
being here with me today. I really appreciate. I think our audience will appreciate this quite a bit when this goes out. Thanks for being here with us and
Thanks for
sharing.
that was fun. I'm happy to be back.